Well, my name is Matt Hare. I'm 38 years old. I'm a program director for the Flynn Christian Fellowship Home in Morganton, North Carolina. I've been doing that since April 3rd of 23. It's a 9-bed facility for men that's struggling with alcohol and drugs. It's a 90-day program. We just upped it to 6 months. So the guys have the choice. They can say 90 days or they can stay 6 months, wherever we feel like they need. But they come to us from detox, and a lot of them have nothing. We take care of their medical care, clothing. We get them in a sponsor, take them to church, do some Bible studies with them throughout the day, and just give them opportunity to reset. It's not a work program. It's they don't have to pay any money there. They just come and they get time to reset. They can figure out how to build that foundation to where it won't crack. Because they come, all of them come in with cracked foundations. Some of it's just sand, and when they get there, I know I was a client in 2020. So when I got there, like, it was sand for my foundation, and a lot of these guys, myself included, like, they got to learn how to use a washing machine. They got to learn how to cook. They got to learn how to wash dishes. So basic things like that. That's what we're doing there now.
Yeah. So as a director, what's your role? How do you interact with the guys, and what's your responsibility?
So there, it's actually from start to finish, man. I'm the first person they speak to when they on the phone interview, and I'm the last person, the last neck they hug when they leave. Everything in between. I do the intakes. I do the case management. I also teach the classes. We do some overdose prevention, some anger management. We do therapeutic classes throughout the day. And then there's also a therapist that comes in and does 3 groups a week. I help them do job placement, job training. I help them check out a checking account, stuff like that. And then I also show them how service work is, because I think service work is very important. So I show them, give them the opportunity to go out to the community and help somebody. Build a ramp for a handicapped man. Weed eat for a widow. Stuff like that. And they usually hate it at first, but they usually get the benefit of doing it, and they feel the gratification.
So you talked a little bit about kind of what you do, and you mentioned you were part of this program prior to being the director. So can you talk about let's dig in a little bit of your testimony. How did the time leading up to needing this program and saying to yourself, you know what, I got to go somewhere. Talk about how you found yourself in that situation.
Okay. Yeah, that's a journey, well, so I always tell people I'm the baby of 5 siblings. So I make a joke and I tell people when I came along, Mama was tired. She tried her best, but a lot of my family, I guess I would be considered the black sheep for being clean right now. So a lot of my older cousins, a lot of my brothers, a lot of my sisters, everybody was dibbling, dabbling, drinking a little bit, smoking a little bit of pot. I don't really know what all they did, but they was holding down jobs. I mean, they was doing their thing. Um, and when I came up being the baby, I wanted to fit in. So I started doing what they did, and everybody was older than me because I was the baby. So I was hanging out with older people, and I remember like the first time I drank alcohol. I think I was 11 years old, and I remember we stole my dad's beer, and I remember I drank 2 beers, and it was warm and it was nasty, but I remember like a warm blanket going over me, and it was just we was young. I didn't really realize that it was an issue. It was just something that everybody was doing, so I was doing it with them. I had some trouble in school because I like to be the center of attention, and so I got in trouble at school, and I ended up dropping out in 8th grade.
Wow.
And my mom, she didn't fight that. You know what I mean? So I ended up dropping out and in 8th grade, and we're just drinking and smoking weed. It's nothing big. nothing. Like it didn't seem like it was nothing big. I'm just doing what my older cousins are doing. Um, but they're able to hold down a job. So, and my wife, who is my wife now, I got to talk about her because she's a part of my story.
Right.
I met her at 13, and we became off and on boyfriend and girlfriend until 16, and then we got engaged at 18, and we started living together at 18. Now she was drinking and smoking weed with me. I hurt my knee. I got an injury on my knee, and the doctors gave me pain pills. Um, Excessive amount of pain pills, and I kept eating those, and I liked the way they made me feel. I could get them really easy. But again, I didn't have no responsibility. I'm 18 years old. I'm carefree, just me and my girlfriend. And I remember I ran out of my medication one time, and I felt like I was getting the flu or something. And I looked it up on Google, and I figured out what dope sick was. I was dope sick, so I couldn't find nothing nowhere, and I ended up finding some heroin.
Wow.
Um, Again, at 18, I didn't think death was a. I thought death had an age limit. Um, it wasn't until my brother died at 19. He drank alcohol and threw up and vomited, and he died at 19. And that's when I realized, like, hey, you can die at a young age. And that scared me straight for about 2 weeks. I didn't do nothing. I was walking around with a Bible in my hand. Like, you couldn't tell me nothing. I was sober. I wasn't going to do nothing. But I didn't have no kind of I didn't have no men speaking life to me. I didn't have a program. So that didn't last very long. And I started dabbling again. And then next thing you know, me and my wife, we're doing cocaine and we're smoking crack and we're doing heroin. But everything's okay because we got a house, we got a car, we're keeping our jobs. And she got pregnant with my son. She got pregnant with my son and she stopped. Excuse me. She stopped everything. I didn't. I tried to stop, and that's when I realized I was 20 years old when I realized I couldn't stop. And it was the scariest feeling in the world because she stopped for the baby, and I wanted to stop for the baby, but I couldn't. I couldn't do it, and I couldn't figure it out. So I just kept doing it. Well, Colby came, and my wife is watching me do it, so she starts doing it again. So we're both doing it. So then my daughter comes 2 years later, and again I had my own paint business. You know, I had my own paint business. She had a good career in waitressing. She worked for Sagebrush for like 12 years. Like we had it from the outside looking in, we had it together. We had two kids, two babies, had a house. I had my own business. She was doing good. But we're dying on the inside and we can't tell nobody because, it's just too shameful. Because in my family, you only have a problem if you can't hold down a job. You really don't have a problem drinking, using, smoking, only when you can't pay rent. That's whenever my family says, "Hey, you got a problem." So my family was able to do that, and I was able to do that up until this. Needles got involved. We started shooting up heroin at a crazy rate, and I tell people all the time, like that's whenever somebody just hit the toilet flush on my life, and my life just went down. It was just spiraling uncontrollably. Uh, that needle tried to take my soul, like it took my morals. And I always tell people in third grade when the teacher asked me what I wanted to be, it wasn't addicted to drugs or being in prison, but that's what happened. And it started out as being an innocent, smoking weed, drinking. I was a good kid. I was a likable kid. I didn't hurt nobody. But I got on this path that I had no idea. Because, see, the devil, the devil paints this beautiful picture, man. And he painted a picture for me. And it was so beautiful. And the world liked me. And the girls flirted with me. And I liked that feeling. My flesh wanted what the world had to offer. But I had no idea that it was going to hurt my kids and hurt me in the way that it did. So the devil painted this picture for me, and it was just supposed to be an innocent trail down the woods, and there was no going to be nobody hurt. But the devil didn't show me the other side. Because see, the devil paints two pictures, I've learned. And the first one is beautiful and it looks so appetizing. And there's so much fruit on the trees and there's so much playfulness and there's so much peace. But when you flip that picture over, there's so much torment and there's so much pain. And my kids crying and my wife on her deathbed. And I didn't realize it. I didn't know that the pain, if you would have showed me the other side of that picture, I would have never went down that path. And I love when I get a chance to talk about this because there's so many people out there that don't know the other side is there. You know what I mean? And I get emotional when I think about it because the devil almost had me. I tell people whenever I started the needle and the devil showed me that picture, I knew I had to change. My wife got a heart condition where she had to get a heart valve replaced. Well, the doctors wasn't going to do it because she wasn't clean. And my kids, I remember being on the front porch and my son would be crying for me. He was probably 6, 7 years old. And he was crying for me to come lay with him. Now, my son had to go to school the next morning. But I'm on the front porch with my homeboys. And I don't want to miss nothing. So he's crying for me. And I yell at him. And I tell him to go to bed. And I tell his mom to lay with him. That's not me. That's not who I am, My son is my world. But I couldn't leave what was happening on that front porch to go lay with my son. That's how jacked up the devil had my mind. And that's how jacked up I was on the drugs and alcohol. Because I didn't want to miss nothing. And my wife, she's on her deathbed. They gave her 5 years to live if she didn't have the surgery. And my uncle told me one time, my uncle's a pastor, and he said, Matt, he said, she'll follow you to heaven. No, I'm sorry. He said, Matt, she'll follow you to hell. He said, but she'll follow you to heaven too. So which way are you going to take her? I was taking her to hell. You know what I mean? I overdosed 7 or 8 times, and she saved me all 7 times. So she had this grasp of if she left me, I was going to die. So she wouldn't leave me. And I was taking her down with me. And every time she would, and I'm not happy to admit this, but every time she would fuss, because she was always the voice of reason, and she would want to stop. And every time she would fuss, I would put the drugs in front of her because I didn't want to stop. I was so consumed on the world. I was a general for the devil. Like the devil had me. It was lack of knowledge destroys us. I didn't have the knowledge, man. I didn't know that I needed to be saved until I was saved. I didn't know. And so I'm going down this path and my kids are crying. My wife's dying. My mom's begging me to stop. And I knew I needed to do something. But I didn't know what to do, and me and my wife ended up going to prison. She went to prison, I went to prison, my kids went to my mom's. And I thank God for my mom because I don't know where they would be at today if it wasn't for her, And she already lost 2 kids, my mom did. So it was hard on her to take my kids in and for what I was going through. But I couldn't see the damage I was doing. And you would think prison would straighten a man up. It made it worse. There wasn't a sober day in prison for me. I was high every day in prison. So when I got out of prison, you get out and you're like, I'm going to change and I'm going to do good. And I had 20, 30 pounds on me. And there's something about that freedom air. I call it freedom air. Because I went to jail probably, to rewind it, I went to jail probably 60, 70 times. I'm a level 6 habitual felon with an 8th grade education. And the devil reminded me of that every day. Every time I would want to change or if somebody would start speaking life into me, the devil was on this side saying, man, you're a level 6 habitual felon with an 8th grade education. Like, you're done. Your only shot is to work for me and let me give you a life. And like the Bible says, it is fun for a minute. There is pleasure in sin for a minute. And that's that picture I talk about. but it's only for a season. And then there's so much torment, And it's like throwing a rock into a pond. You see the ripples go out. The ripples symbolizes what you're doing to your family. My addiction was the rock. The ripples was what it was affecting my family and my friends and my loved ones and my kids. And all I wanted to do, I remember I was on parole, and all I wanted to do was be a good dad. I never had a dad growing up. And all I wanted to do was be a good dad to my kids. They've been with my mom for about 4 or 5 years. Everybody just kind of gave up on us. We're living in our van. I'm digging out of dumpsters to eat. There was no hope. There was no way out. I accepted doom. I did. Like I was going to hell, and I became okay with it in a weird way. I was okay with it. Again, lack of knowledge. See, the devil was telling me, like, you're no good. You're not going to make it. Your race has been ran. You're done. And I believed him. And I remember my wife went into a seizure one night. And I remember she went to the hospital. And I'm dope sick. And I got some heroin. And I remember I'm sitting in my camper. And I'm doing a shot of heroin. And I'm crying. Because everything in me didn't want to do it. If you would have put me to a lie detector test and asked me if I wanted to stop, I would have said yes, and I would have passed that test. I did not want to stick my arm with that heroin, but I didn't have no other way. That was the only thing I knew. So I'm crying. My wife's in the hospital dying. I'm in a camper, and I'm shooting the heroin just to feel better. And there's no way out. There's nothing I can do. And my uncle showed up. And, he said, I think you should go get treatment. And this is how God works. This is how God works. I didn't want to get treatment. I wanted to give up. I was done. I thought my kids and my wife would be better off without me, man. You know what I mean? And he said, go get treatment. And I said, no, I don't want to go get treatment. And I got in the backseat of my mom's car. We was going to her house, and I fell asleep. Now, mind you, I've been up for about 3 weeks, on a run, and I fell asleep. I woke up in ADAX parking lot. It's a detox 14-day rehab up in Black Mountain. I woke up in the parking lot to my grandma, bless her heart, waking me up, telling me to go inside, and I was mad. Because I wanted to do it my way. I wanted my way. It was on a Friday too. I mean, I had all weekend. What do you mean? Let's do this on a Monday. So she's waking me up, and I'm like, I need underwear and I need socks. They done went to Walmart and bought every excuse I could think of. I mean, I had a duffel bag full of everything, brand new. And I'm sitting there, and this is a sunny day, and I'm looking at the cemetery. There's a cemetery down there, and I'm thinking, who can I call? I'm about to run. Now, if you know anything about me, I despise walking in the rain. I will not walk in the rain. I've always been like that. It started raining. It started raining, man. So I said, I threw my hands up. I said, whatever, let's just go in here. See, I was out of plays. If I had one more play left, I don't know if I'd be here today. But see, God allowed me to run out of plays. I had no more plays left. It was raining. I was a couple hours away from being dope sick. My only play was to go inside and figure it out from there. You know what I mean? So I went in, and they're full. Like most places, they're full. And the doctor comes in and says, we're keeping him. I don't know why they kept me. She said some kind of code number. She said, this code, we got to keep him. Maybe because of the fentanyl and the heroin that was in my system. They put me in a janitor's closet. They said, legally, we can keep you in a janitor's closet for 24 hours before we got to put you in a bed with a bathroom. And, I had a bed and stuff, in there. But so they put me in a janitor's closet, and I went there. And I really didn't know if I was done. I didn't know if I wanted sobriety. I didn't know the life that I live today. I didn't know it existed. I thought it was a fairy tale, man. It don't happen for guys like me. And I stayed in there, and they told me about Flynn Christian Fellowship Home in Morganton. Now I'm from Asheville, North Carolina, and what I did was I would go to rehab I would go to detox, and I'd go back home. I would go to detox and I'd go back home. And for me, I had to get out of Asheville. I had to get away from Asheville. And I didn't want to leave though. I told my counselor, and she was a good, godly woman. And I told her, I said, I can't leave. I got my kids here. I got my wife in the hospital. And she said, Matt, the farther you get away from your family, the closer to your family you're going to be. And it resonated with me. So I said, you know what? I'll go. I said, I'll go. And if I'm being honest, I really wanted to show people that it didn't work. That was my motive on going, because I'm jacked up, man. Like my brain is just jacked up, and I've been working for the devil for so long. My knowledge is just gone. And I remember God came and met me in that room that night. I was in ADAC. I had the room to myself, and I'm curled up in the fetal position. And I remember this wave I wasn't even seeking nothing. This wave just came in there and just hit me, man, and gave me cold chills all down my body. And I said 3 words. I said, God help me. That's all I said was, God help me. I submitted and didn't even know it. I didn't know it until I was able to look back. I said, God help me. The next day they sent me to Morganton, North Carolina, to the Flynn Christian Fellowship Home. This was during COVID. I was the only client there for about 5 weeks in this big old house, just me. But I needed that because I never been alone. I didn't know how to do laundry. I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to clean up after myself. I didn't know how to do none of that. So I learned all that there, and I started praying for God to put men in my life to bring me closer to Him, because I started to like what I seen in the mirror. I never looked in the mirror before. I started to like the guy looking back. And my wife and my kids are still in Nashville, and guys started coming to me like Chuck Mosley and Bruce, and just all these men started coming and speaking life into me. And these men cared more about my life than they did my feelings. They didn't tell me what I wanted to hear. They told me what I needed to hear. They didn't care if I got upset, and my life was more important. And the coolest thing about it is men started looking me in the eyes. See, I didn't realize how important that was, but they looked me in my eyes. And like I said before, I didn't know I needed to be saved until I was saved. And then God put the fear in me of, man, you was this close to going to hell, and you was okay with it. Like, that's a scary thing. I didn't realize how scary it was. So I went through the program. I graduated, and my wife came down. She got the surgery. She got the heart surgery. We moved in together. And me and her only knew each other high. So we had to learn how to love each other sober. And we're still together today. We just celebrated 20 years. So that we got the kids back. And now none of this was an overnight matter. I feel like God gives us responsibility. And then whenever we handle that responsibility, He gives us a little more responsibility. A little more, a little more. And what God didn't just save my life, but God gave me an opportunity to speak life into other men, because I wasn't even seeking that job. That job came to me, and now I'm able to sit on the other side of the table, and I'm able to see these men come in, and that was me. That was me coming in, and I'm able to relate with them on a level that nobody else can, because I know what it feels like to be 60 days in. I know what it feels like to be 90 days in. You know what I mean? And I did struggle, because see, the devil's crafty, and the devil for a minute made me think that as long as I wasn't drinking or using, I was okay. So lustfulness came into play, me being a married man. So I would lust over videos and women and pictures, and I would say cuss words. I would get into the wrong kind of joking with men. That wasn't right, being a godly man. But the devil was telling me, even as a Christian, the devil was telling me, it's all right. You ain't putting a needle in your arm no more. So the devil really convicted me on that. The devil really convicted me on that, and that's when I prayed for. That's when I prayed for men to come in my life to bring me closer to Him, and that's when God sent me Eddie. God sent me a client named Eddie, and that man introduced me to Jaime Torres, and he told me about the Real Talk and Real Faith on Friday nights. And Eddie was an answered prayer because I was lost in my Christianity. I was lost. And I was sober, but I was lost spiritually. And when I prayed for God to send me somebody, He sent me Eddie, but He sent me the whole JTM Ministries with Eddie. I just didn't know it at the time. You know what I mean? Because Eddie introduced me to Jaime Torres. And then we started coming to Friday nights at the Open Door Church.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So it's your first night, you walk into Real Faith, Real Talk. Like, what are you thinking and what did you experience just that first time? And then what keeps you coming back and what makes you what was the decision to say, yeah, man, I got to get my guys around these folks as well? Talk about that.
Well, when I first walked in, I didn't know what to expect. You know what I mean? Eddie told me a little bit about it, but I didn't know what to expect. And I met Jaime, and I didn't know what to expect. But I seen like-minded people. Nobody was judgy. You can feel the spirit when you walk in there, you know. And everybody, the moment I walked in, everybody treated me as I was. Like, I've been there 10 years. I couldn't believe it. You know, they're shaking my hand, hugging me, telling me they love me. And then whenever I sat down for the service, from beginning to end, I just felt the spirit, you know. And I know, like, no matter how bad of a week I have, if I can just make it there on Friday nights, I'm going to be okay. Because God always speaks to me through Jaime. He always does. Every time there's a message there, He speaks to. There's something out there that I get. And I started feeling spiritually fit by being there. So I was like, man, I got to get my guys to be a part of this. And every time I tell my guys, I'm like, all right, guys, we're going to Real Talk, Real Faith. And when they ain't never been there before, they're like, man, I don't want to go. It's Friday night, 7 o'clock. And I always tell them we're not going to be home till 11. I just go ahead and tell them that from the gate, you know. And he's like, I don't want to do this. I'm like, just try it. If you don't want to come back, that's fine. And they always want to come back. They always want to come back, and then they tell other people about it. And now we got a carpool. Now there's like 2 or 3 carloads that come to the Real Talk, Real Faith. So we're able to pour into other people by using that ministry, you know.
Yeah. How important is community, you know, with guys going through this process?
It takes a village to raise an alcoholic and an addict in recovery. You know, it takes a village. Community is the heartbeat of it. I say that the community is the heartbeat of it. You need the community because, speaking from experience, when we're out there, we isolate, you know. And there's so many people out there that see a dirty homeless person or they see somebody struggling with alcohol and drugs. They don't look at them as that's somebody's son, that's somebody's daughter, that's somebody's dad, you know. They don't look at him in the aspect. They look at him and like, that's a dirty person that's going to rob me. That he wants to hurt me. He wants to rape me. He wants to take my money. And really, he's just or she. They're just a kind person that got lost on the merry-go-round, and a simple smile can keep them alive. And I'll give you an example. My stepdad, my last 2 years being out there, my stepdad. I lived in parking lots in my van, and he would run into me. He kept me from shooting myself for 2 years, that man. And all he did was approach me, and he wouldn't tell me what I needed to do. He wouldn't tell me where I was messing up because I knew. I'm living in a van in Ingles parking lot. I knew what I was doing was wrong. I just needed somebody to have a civil conversation with, crack a couple jokes. Laugh with me, man. Let me feel normal for a half a second. And he would do that. He wouldn't give me money, you know, nothing like that. But he would come and just chop it up. He would come and chop it up with me, man. Like nothing was wrong, nothing was good, and it made me feel normal. And I was suicidal in the last 2 years. Like I wanted to die. And I know God sent him to me because every time I would get to the moment of like, all right, I'm going to kill myself, my stepdad Bo would show up, and he never knew what he was doing for me just by showing up, cracking a couple jokes. And that's why community is so important because just because they're not getting sober right then, let them feel normal. Crack it up, chop it up with them. They're a human being. They're not an evil individual. They're good people. They're just sick in their addiction, and they need us to love them while they can't love themselves. They need us to laugh for them when they can't laugh themselves. We need to be their smile when they can't smile. Because that's what's going to keep them alive long enough to get the treatment they need for God to do his work. You know what I mean? So I think community is very important. It's the heartbeat of this thing.
Yeah. So let's transition. Talk about the need that you see still. I know there's some programs out there. You mentioned a couple of them. You're part of one.
Right.
Talk about the need that still exists.
There's a big need, here locally, especially. I work for a place. It's a 9-bed facility, but it's full 90% of the time. There is other rehabs and services out there, but either their criteria is a certain type of criteria, or they're full. There's a waiting list on everywhere from here. I know personally from here to Wilmington, there's a waiting list right now. Excuse me. I just tried to get a guy in, and everywhere we called was full, and there's a waiting list. And waiting lists will kill folks. People are dying out here. They are dying left and right. It's the new studies is every 5 minutes. Every 5 minutes, somebody is dying on an overdose, and a lot of them don't even know it. These young kids out here, they don't even know it's laced. They're getting marijuana that's laced with fentanyl now. 80% of drugs, including marijuana, has traces of fentanyl in it today. But the need for facilities like mine is so great because the drug problem's getting worse, and the facilities are becoming less because of funding, because of state picking them up, and really funding is the biggest thing. But, and for example, my nephew, he was a resident here in Longview, and he was just barely turned 19 years old. He struggled with fentanyl for about 3 or 4 years. And when I say I've never seen a kid want to get sober so bad besides him. He would cry, and he would moan, and he would beg for help, and he just wanted to stop. Like me and like a lot of us, he got off on the wrong trail, man. And it took him way farther than he wanted to go. And when he wanted to come back, there wasn't no resources. He went to a detox, but a detox only holds you for 7 days. And the thing about a detox, whether you got a place to go or not, your 7 days is up, you're out. It don't matter. They just ain't got the bed space. So once the doctor says, hey, he's medically stable, they kick you out, whether you have a place or not. And 9 times out of 10, I'd say probably 90 or 85% of the time, it's not that they don't want to go to get long-term treatment. They don't have the option to get long-term treatment. And my nephew kept running into roadblocks. Either he was too young. A lot of places are 21 and over. So like my nephew felt in that criteria where he was too young for a lot of places, or his insurance didn't work. And sadly to say, my nephew lost the fight to this battle. He overdosed. And just 2 days before he overdosed, he begged me to find him a place. And we was working effortlessly to try to get him a place. But he died right here in our backyard. He overdosed and died, begging for help because we didn't have the bed space available. At 19 years old, he is gone when he could have been saved. If we just would have had a bed for him to go to, he was willing to go, but was shut down at the door because there wasn't enough bed space. So it's very important to have places where these people can go and have availability for them when they're ready to go.
So if you could speak on behalf of folks like your family member you just mentioned and the countless others that are out there, to the folks that are going to see this video, how would you plead with them to get involved, both financially and in other ways as well, spiritually praying? Just urge the viewer to get involved and take action.
Right. Yeah, I would say to them like addiction affects everybody. You know, even if it's not in your family per se, addiction affects everybody. And just know that that's somebody's son, that's somebody's daughter, and it doesn't discriminate. See, that's the thing about addiction is it doesn't discriminate. I know lawyers, I know doctors, and I know homeless people, and they're all three recovering addicts and alcoholics. I know them personally right now. Doctors, lawyers, white, black, Mexican, Puerto Rican, Chinese, it don't matter. Addiction does not discriminate. It don't matter if you're 60 years old or if you're 19 years old. It don't discriminate. So I'd urge you not to think that it's just a certain type of people. It could be anybody across the board. It could be your son. It could be your daughter. It could be your mother. It could be you. We're all just one decision away from going down that wrong path. And it always takes us farther than we want to go. So I would urge the people that's watching this video, get involved. Help. If you can help financially, help financially. If you can't help financially, you can pray. Prayer works, man. Prayer kept me alive long enough to find recovery. People took time out of their day and breath out of their body for me. The reason I'm sitting here talking to you people right now is because somebody invested in a little old me, and now I'm able to invest in other men and other women. So your donations, whether it's spiritual, it's prayer, it's helping build it, or it's financing it, it's not going to go to waste because somebody did that for me. And I'm a perfect example of what could happen when somebody finds help. Because I'm not selfishly taking this, I'm giving it back now. And that's what we got to do. That's how the only way we're going to win the war on drugs is if we got to build disciples to go out into the community and help other people struggling. And the only way to do that is donations. So I would plead, if you feel it in your heart, donate. If you're financially able, donate. If you're not, pray. If you see somebody struggling, wave at them and smile. And you might just save their life for that day, because it did for me. So I would urge you, if you get the opportunity to help, help. Never say no to help, because you never know when your loved one might be in that position and somebody has the opportunity to help them. You would want them to help your loved one. Yeah. There's no difference.
Yeah. That's awesome. So we're wanting to take kind of the spirit of real faith, kind of bottle and package that and turn it into an 18-month program. With that context in mind, share, how excited you are about kind of real faith, real talk, turning into and expanding into the rehabilitation space, and how you see that benefiting guys like in the community. And I think we'll end right about there.
Yeah, well, man, it makes me so excited because just what I see from what Real Talk and Real Faith is doing on Friday nights with my guys, especially because my guys, they're different when they leave there. And like Jaime and Victor come over to the house and they do Bible. They've done Bible study with my guys, and so just for me seeing what happens on Friday nights there, and to take that atmosphere and that knowledge and that spirit and form it into an 18-month discipleship rehab for men that's struggling with alcohol and drugs, man, it's a no-brainer. You know what I mean? It's definitely going to be a godsend, and I can't wait to see what it does. But just from what I see on Friday nights, if you can take that and make it into an 18-month, there's no telling what God's going to do with that. You know what I mean? And the cool thing about that is the disciples that y'all are making on Friday nights. And for people like me, I'm able to take what I learned on a Friday night and speak life into men at my program. Y'all are going to do that over a course of 18 months to these men, and they're going to be able to go out into the community and speak life into other people struggling. So it's going to be just building that army of God, you know. And the cool thing I like what Friday nights do is they teach people that recovery is fun and God is cool. You know what I mean? And there's nothing better than that, you know, and to show these people for 18 months how cool God is and how fun recovery can be. I'm just so excited to do it. And I can't wait to volunteer my time at the facility and speak life into these men with you guys. And I just want to be a part of it, you know.